Good evening, and welcome to Book Talk. This evening we're talking with writer, philosophizer, and sometimes actor, Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, it's such a pleasure to talk with you today.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. It is wonderful to be on your show, and may I say thank you for mentioning the acting. It
Yes.
is only an amateur
Oh no,
production
it's
of.
it's it's yeah. I've seen your acting, and although not a leading role, but still a demanding presence.
Well, thank you so much. It is certainly very difficult to play an infant in at my advanced stage, but my director is fully supportive and has just been in my corner this whole time.
Yes, and I believe you've acquired a little bit of internet fandom, as the young people say these days, in that you were an extra in the Michael J. Fox comedy Teen Wolf, in which you appear in the background, and you appear to be exposing yourself. Now, was that in the script? Were you encouraged to improvise, or was that something you did entirely on your own?
Yes. Unfortunately, that was actually not me
Oh, I'm
exposing
so
myself.
sorry.
Although I was directed to do so, what happened on that particular day was that while I would have been the extra in that particular shot, the gymnasium was particularly cold, and unfortunately, my member uh, shrunk into it itself, and I was not able to produce the length that the director was requiring for that particular shot. And so a last minute person with a similar appearance was called upon to replace me.
Oh, I am so sorry. I mean, I am so sorry that you do not make it into the final cut of that film.
I appreciate the sentiment, but it was a long time ago, and I've moved on, and have since become more accustomed to the cold. In case I should be called upon for a similar acting role.
Yes. Now, we should probably move on and talk about your book, which is a chronicle of 20 years of as a moviegoer, of going to these movies and discovering sexuality in these mainstream movies that non people would recognize.
Yes, I am also. I teach at the local college down over at Ottawa. I am. I My class there is called uh, uh, masturbation and gratification, cinema's exploration of the sexual subtext of human psychology. And we meet every. It is also found in the extracurricular catalog at Ottawa College. And yes, so this is a combination of my observations from prior to teaching this class, as well as observations that I have gained and refined in the course of my academic profession and studies.
Oh yes. Now, I'm actually getting directions from my producer in my headphones for a second. Hang on. Oh yes. Well, we're going to be back with Dr. Johnson. You understand we have to take a very short commercial break. It pays for the program. So we'll be right back with
I was
Dr.
under the impression this was public access.
Oh yes, but we do have to beg from time to time.
Oh, oh,
Yes,
I
pardon.
understand
Yes,
that
yes.
perfectly. Yes.
Yes. So we'll be right back with book talk with myself, Ted, or my Nancy. Doesn't matter. Anyway,
Today you shall be Sam.
yes, yes. Thank you. I need people around me to tell me who I am, and I'm thankful that you are here today. We'll be back
My pleasure.
very momentarily with Dr. Johnson and his discussion about sexuality in mainstream movies. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm John Pertwee. No, I'm not. I'm Patrick Troughton, aren't I? Anyway, I am here at Grover's Mill, New Jersey, site of Orson Welles' immortal War of the Worlds. Aha! Did you see that? I'd like to remind you that NJN needs your $40 membership. I urge you to help support the network that brings you Doctor Who. Call 1-800-528-6600 right now. Too often, membership appeals are a war of the words. Public television interrupts your favorite program to solicit your membership. You yell at your TV, "Get off! Get off!" but not on NJN. The rest of 1986 is pledge-free, folks. Pledge-free Doctor Who. Well, that's logic even a Dalek could understand. NJN. Positively worth joining.
Now you can relieve inflamed hemorrhoidal tissue with the oxygen action of Preparation H. It accelerates absorption of pure oxygen to help shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissue, as it often relieves pain and itch for hours. Preparation H with oxygen action.
Hold the mistletoe, because it's a Crazy Eddie Christmas blowout blitz. Crazy Eddie's got everything you could possibly need for Christmas, and it's all on sale now. TVs, VCR, stereo systems, telephones, telephone answering machines, anything and everything in home entertainment, and lots of home appliances, too. Remember, we are not undersold. We will not be undersold. We cannot be undersold, and we mean it. Santa knows that the best deals in town are at Crazy Eddie's during Crazy Eddie's Christmas blowout blitz. See Crazy Eddie now. His prices are insane. Hit me, hit me.
Nervous? Then sit back in your favorite chair.
Anybody want to play Parcheesi?
Scare up your oldest friends.
This chick is toast.
And join Bill Murray,
Slime me.
Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver,
You want this body?
Rick Moranis, and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man
Well, there's something you don't see every day.
for a very spirited evening. Next.
Moscow in flames, missiles headed toward New York. Film at 11.
Yes, now, could the flamethrowers in the thing be the men of Outpost 31 trying a sort of a metaphor for their penises? Do you think that is possible, Dr. Johnson?
I do. In fact, it is my opinion that any interpretation involving penises is a valid one. That is an extremely ugly blow-up doll.
And yes, and you talk about this more in your book. What's it called again, I believe? Can you get the title of your latest best-selling book?
Yes, the title of my book is, of course, an analog for my name, Vagina Penis, which is, of course, a sort of the genitalia dichotomy between both, the oligarchy and the hierarchy of the patriarchy.
Now, in your book, you describe and analyze many blockbuster films as having penis imagery or penis metaphor or vagina metaphor, of course, because we got both male and female, and lots of metaphors for sex. Let me go along the list here of these movies which you've said. My Dog Skip.
Oh yes, well of course the dog in question is not the canine, which is featured prominently throughout the film, but is in fact the phallus of the main character, and of course the character feels castrated. This is a typical psychological phenomenon, and so must compensate for it by projecting his phallus onto an outer being, in this case the actual dog, who is not in fact the Skip of the film, I must reiterate, but is the projected phallus figure.
And yes, and I may and there's a very important scene in My Dark Skip where uh, the main character is asked for a dog, and I put that in quotations, for many
Thank you. That's
years.
appropriate.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, 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 and and his father denies him this dog until one birthday that his mother gives him the dog, and his father takes it
Yeah,
away, and
that
the
is true.
mother pleads
Very
with
true.
the father to give the dog back, and of course, what she does. Do you think this represents the father sort of holding back on allowing his son to have this manhood, to have the kind of venture into the era of puberty? Do you think that is possible?
Not only do I think it is possible, I personally, may I call you Bill?
Yes, you may.
All right, Bill. Um, I personally, Lewis, think that this is the only valid interpretation of this particular scene. That this is a classical Oedipal complex at work, of course, because the figure is in more of a passive position. Yes, the dog in question is no doubt the phallus, the symbol of power, that the father wishes to deny because he is frightened of the thought of his son having power, particularly the idea of his son replacing him, and of course, with the mother being the one begging for the phallus, in this case, the quote unquote dog, to be given to him. That readily fits in with the Oedipal scenario of having sex with the mother and killing the father, and of course the father eventually at the constant attack from both son and mother eventually relents and decides to give his son this phallic power. Yes.
Yes, yes. Now, while you do look for sexual imagery in movies, you've also argued against
I would
false
contend with that. Pardon me, if I could. I do not look for sexual imagery. I discover sexual
Okay,
imagery.
my apologies, sir.
Yes,
My
I don't want
apologies.
to come across as some sort of pervert. That's all.
Yes, yes, and I apologize profusely for that for false statement, and my apologies, sir.
No problem, George. That's fine.
But so these discoveries of sexual imagery in films, but you've also argued against false accusations or false discoveries of certain films. For example, the 1979, I believe it's 79. Yes, 79 Ridley Scott film Alien. You've actually argued against that there is no sexual imagery or metaphors in that movie whatsoever. Could you explain your observations more clearly?
Oh, well, certainly. This is a question I receive quite often, and I'm most happy to go over it again, especially with the large audience that we have here. Hopefully, this will, in a certain sense, put a cap on this particular issue. But of course, in the interest of academic rigor, I'm of course willing to discuss this matter with anyone who should bring up the question. I think what the problem is with viewing Alien as a sort of wonderland of phallic imagery is that it is simply oversaturated. And what I mean by that is that the the proper psychological framework for understanding such a work is to understand that there are two levels in any case that you have in interpreting a work, which is that you have on the surface level the text, and then you have underneath the surface the deeper meaning, the shall I say, potentially repressed meaning of the subtext. And in this case, to look at a film like Alien that so many people point out that they would claim that there is a sort of phallic imagery with both the head of the alien and the mouth of the alien. What is truly going on in this film, and I should say, while in a certain sense that there is no sexual imagery in the film, it might be more accurate to say that there is a active repression of sexuality in the imagery. You see, by having a film that is filled so much with genitalia, with these various kind of analogs for both penises and vaginas, that what you have is effectively a film which is meant to give an idea of the threatening aspect of sexuality. And in effect, the entire film is about repression and castration. You see, so while on the one, so I want to make clear that I have a nuanced position that does go beyond saying that there is no sexual imagery. Rather, what I mean to say is that while the text, the surface, the superficial level of the film is one in which you are seeing a sort of sexual panoply going on, what you have in truth is a message of destruction equals sex. In every case in which you have some kind of encounter between the alien form or of the alien bursting from a chest, which is typically associated more with females, of course, with the chest being the figure of nourishment. In this case, the male, of course, with the more useless nipples on the chest, which I don't personally understand, but that is how biology works. And the imagery is always to suggest that sex is a destructive act of death. It is meant to effectively castrate the viewer. So what is going on really in the subtext is that you are, while there is on the screen all of this going on, what is going on inside of the viewer's psyche is sex is bad. No sex. Do not have sex. Do not have children, in fact. Children will destroy you. And children, again, equals phallus. Children equals power. So, in effect, what you are basically asked to do is to become a detached sort of figure, an asexual being. So, in that sense, there is no sexual imagery in Alien on the level of subtext. What we have is asexual imagery, or perhaps on some level anti-sexual imagery.
That's very, very fascinating, and I'm glad you talked about that, because obviously this is something that's been brought up ever since the film became a big hit in 1979. Now, your observations are not just limited to live-action films. You've also handled animated films, such as children's films.
Certainly.
And you've, particularly the Pixar catalog of films, of course very successful, both financially and critically. And you point to the film Finding Nemo as about a man not searching for his son, but for his penis, his fish penis. Could you delve more into your observations on this?
Oh, well, certainly. I mean, Finding Nemo is an interesting film because I believe it is an imperfect story in terms of its exploration of sexuality. But it is there. What we can derive from the search for the phallic power, the search for the penis, is that what we have in Nemo, and once again, we must also remember that this is not a name in isolation, but that this is a name that is making a reference to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, to Captain Nemo, the captain of the Nautilus, the submersible vehicle, which again is phallic shaped, right? So, and of course, we have his search ongoing for the monster. And in this sense, there is a kind of, because of what you have going on with the various searching going on from Nemo and his encounter with the giant squid, what you have in an analog, a sort of tete-a-tete with the imagery that you see in the beginning of Finding Nemo, which is that there is a monster. Again, in this case, not the same as the one in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but a rough approximation, in that it is a barracuda. A monster which attacks and which causes trauma. And then when there is a sense of helplessness, a sense of, once again, castration that happens, the particular method of defeating that trauma is to use one's phallus, to use one's power against this. And for the character Marlin, who has lost his wife but has gained a son, he has a sense of faulty power. You see, the figure of Nemo is one who is not a whole person, but one who is afflicted with a handicap. And in this sense, this is not really, Nemo's handicap, but because Nemo is in effect the power that Marlin has to get through his life, to get through trauma, what happens is that once he loses his power, he is unable to get through life without that power. And in the process, his power becomes more complete as he learns to not project entirely onto his son, but to rely also on his own phallus. So there is a sort of a dual phallus, if you will, a sort of twin penis action that you have. Two heads are better than one, are they not? It will excuse my use of the expression, Lewis. So in this case, there is a superpower of sorts that is happening, a mega phallus or an ultra penis, if you will, in the reunion of both Nemo and Marlin, and they are able not only to overcome the distance between them, but they are able to take on a monster far more powerful and far larger than even the barracuda, a fisherman's boat, the personification of death for a fish. And it is in this case that both of them are effectively using that sexual energy to overcome that death, that thanatos, that death drive that is attacking them in that particular scene. And effectively, they fuck their fears to death. And in this case, their fear is death, but they are able to overcome it and live.
That's fascinating. Now, what does the female companion fish? How does she play into this quest, this journey?
I assumed that they would both gangbang her at the end of the film, since they are both phallus fish.
That's fascinating. And now, obviously, you're a big film goer. You've seen many films a year, and you've written many works about this. Can you talk about any recent films that you would like to talk about? That may be in your upcoming book.
Oh, well, certainly. One film in particular that is upcoming that I I really don't need to see it in order to write about it. It's apparent from the trailer altogether. This, of course, would be the film Saving Mr. Banks, which is upcoming, starring Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson. And that this is a film which, of course, we have the two levels. We have the subtext and the text, and of course, my concern is more with the far more academic concern of the subtext, and not with the superficial interpretation that this is a biographical film about the adaptation of the P.O. Travers' famous work Mary Poppins. No, this is far more about the sexual tension that is between Walt Disney and Travers as an author, and that there is a creative spark that is fused not only between them but also with the Sherman brothers, a sort of triple penetration of sorts that occurs creatively and in a sort of creative bukkake, shall we say, in terms of the way that the life force comes together in the formation of the film Mary Poppins based upon the work Mary Poppins.
And that's very fascinating, and hopefully, when the film comes out, we can all see your observation play out, all your observations play out on screen. Now, I know we have a very short time, but I'd like to ask you about one more film.
No problem.
It's definitely highlighted in your in your book, and I believe you call it the most sexually charged film that you've seen, and that your discovery was when you saw this film, and the discovery of it led you to write this book and continue these studies of film and how sexuality plays in them. The 1984 comedy Ghostbusters. Now, what can you tell us about this well-loved classic film?
Well, Brett, I think that the first thing that I would want to say is I think it is summed up in the theme song for the film, "Bustin' Makes Me Feel Good." It is a celebration of life. It is a celebration of sperm, really, of the seeds of life. The film is an explosion of jism, of life's joie de vie, in the most cinematic, orgasmic way possible. And what I think many people overlook because of the film's somewhat misleading title, which I'm told by reputable sources was forced upon Dan Aykroyd, who was one of the story's creators. That the film is not, as the text would make it seem, some sort of comedy about dead people, about spirits. No, this is a far misinterpretation of what the film is about. It is a film about creation, and you see the main characters begin at a university, which I think is key to understanding what is going on. And if you observe the scene, there is a very clear kind of test that Bill Murray is performing, and at the same time you can tell that he is making up certain answers that the person who is female, but it could be male. It doesn't matter either way. It is sexual.
One person is male, one is male, and one is female.
That is true. And what that suggests is that true life does not consist of a choice of either the same sex or the opposite sex, but of both sexes being placed into the mating ritual, which that particular scene is actually depicting. It is not some sort of test of ESP. It is truly a ritual in which Bill Murray is trying to decide who he should first mate with. But as you can tell, they have been in this particular testing field before, particularly the male. So you know that Bill Murray is considering his options and keeping that in the back of his spank bank, so to speak. And what we find is that the I'm afraid I have to say it in French. I can't say it in English, but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
the je ne sais quoi that they all share together this Venkman and the pardon me, perhaps I could get your assistance with
Yes,
the
sir, anything.
characters' names.
Bill Murray's name is, I believe, is Venkman, as you said.
Yes.
Spangler is the Harold Ramis character, and
Spengler, yes.
and Stans is the Dan Aykroyd character, and Winston Zedmore is the Ernie Hudson character.
Very good, thank you. So all of them ultimately, what the story is a struggle for them to realize that infinite pool of life and of sexuality and power that resides deep within inside of them, that they are at all times being directed away from. You see, what has happened as they are kicked out of the university is that the place of life, of affirmation, of the place where ideas are celebrated, this is denied them. They are effectively kicked out of paradise. And so they are thrust into toil, into the world of sin, as it were. And it is going through this world of sin and of having to encounter bureaucracy and of having to shackle themselves to the chains of capitalism, informing their own business, that they are having to basically be honed through the fires of experience, and eventually they come to the place where they are confronted with pure power, with the god Zul. And the god Zul, of course, challenges them to rise to the occasion, to effectively become erect, to make their move, to try to stick it out, so to speak. And they do this. And of course, you have the what I would call of this incredibly sexually charged movie, the most sexually charged scene of the film, in which they cross their streams, effectively entwining their phalluses all together in a sort of penis Gordian knot. And this knot of nut is effectively the thing that overcomes the power of the god of death and destruction and affirms their life. And as they exit from this encounter, they have effectively overcome their little death, the orgasm, and they spread their jism over the city, which is seen in the form of what initially, on the textual level, appears to be marshmallow cream, but is in fact sperm. And they are triumphant and celebrated, and they are affirmed, and they radiate that after sexual glow at the end of the film that you see as they walk out to the affirmation of the crowd, which has been blessed by their ejaculation.
That's very fascinating. Now, early on in the film, the Harold Ramis character warned about crossing the stream, saying that it would bring them death and give them danger. Could you talk about why the Harold Ramis character, Spangler, would be so reluctant to cross the streams?
Homophobia.
That's a very good answer. Now, the scene you described in this, and it's very powerful written. Your use of words is just outstanding. May I say, sir?
Thank you, or merci, I should say.
Oh yes, yes. This is the particular scene in which you say. Excuse me, I'm just so overcome by your words that I cannot form words of my own. I am so sorry. Forgive me, sir.
There is nothing to apologize for, my friend.
Yes, now there's a scene. Excuse me, I'm getting emotional. There's a scene which you said that you literally achieved orgasm in the theater. And it was a moment of enlightenment.
Yes, I was not permitted in that theater any longer after that.
I am so sorry.
Sadly.
I am sorry. But the scene in itself, which you described as a breakthrough, and you realized your life's ambition and therefore led you to this profession, was a scene about a discussion, I believe. It's about a sugary treat known as a Twinkie. Now, could you explain how that scene, which is only less than a minute long, how that could bring about such a moment of clarity to you, an epiphany, if you will?
Well, you see, when it comes down to it, and when it comes out of it, when we're talking about sexuality, when we are talking about the horizontal mambo, when we are talking about the hunka chunka, when we are talking about hiding the salami, what we are truly discussing is not a physical act per se, although that is certainly part of it. What we are talking about is a psychological realization of one's power. What we are talking about when we talk about splooge is an exercise of power, is an assertion of one's strength and life force being displayed and shared. It is one of the most cathartic experiences one can have in this, and I find it often more stimulating than what the typical textual sexual experience is about. And if I may say so, I am rock hard as I have been speaking with you, and it
yes,
is.
I can see that from where I'm sitting. It's amazing.
Yes, I am
everyone else
pitching
can,
a tent in my mat.
I hope everyone else can see this. I know the people in the back have a hard time. But anyway, continue.
Oh, certainly. Well, in the scene you are discussing, and I will do my best for the sensitivities of our somewhat repressed members who may be in the audience. I'm not certain. To hold back from climaxing as I discuss this. But the scene in question, in which Ernie Hudson's character is effectively learning about the power that is accumulating, that is building, that is flowing and causing a rise of various incidents and various proportions in New York City. That the Twinkie is used as a an analog, a sort of illustration to explain how power is working and what the size is of the power. And of course, what is a Twinkie but a picture of the act of sexual intercourse? It is a pathway filled with cream. It is, in effect, a telescopic view of the vagina in a penetration by a penis in ejaculation. And what it effectively did in that scene was it was a revelation of sorts. It was I felt like I had plunged to the bottom of the subtext and effectively had burst through on the mountain of the other side of interpretation at that moment. It was a perfect just summary, shall I say, joie de bête noire that I had been searching for in my entire academic career. And that one line, and I must brace myself, that's a big Twinkie. I
Are you all right, sir?
apologize.
Are you all right? Do you need a glass of water?
Perhaps a towel. I've made
Oh,
a
yes.
little mess.
Can we get a towel from Mr. Johnson,
So
Dr. Johnson?
I apologize.
Oh no, that's fine. That's fine. We had no worries. We had Harlan Ellison here earlier here today, so
good.
that chair was probably already staying anyway.
Yes, it did feel a little moist when I sat down.
I believe Mr. Ellison had a terrible accent. I'm sorry about this. Yes. Here's your towel, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, and that line for me is the perfect absolute pinnacle of subtextual sexuality in cinema. I feel that there is no better way of phrasing it than to say that's a really big Twinkie.
Are you sorry?
I'm so glad I have this towel.
Do you need a towel?
No, it's all right. It's very absorbent.
Okay.
So
would you like some more water?
yes, please. That would be good. Thank you.
Now, you've talked about you've written extensively about each of the characters and how they react to their own sexuality. That the Harold Ramis character is very curious and experimental about his sexuality. As I recall in one scene where he wants the Murray character to collect samples of a gooish substance that a ghost left behind, and in a later scene he says to the female worker at the Ghostbusters headquarters, which is in a firehouse, that his hobbies include collecting spores, molds, and fungus.
Yes, and what I have actually reconsidered my position somewhat on the character of as you mentioned, the Harold Ramis character. That while I feel that I focused somewhat too heavily upon the textual level in making the assertion that he was exploring his sexuality, that he was desirous of various kinds of shall we say, icky substances that he might then spread upon his face, as though he had received a money shot, shall we say. And what I believe is more important in understanding his character is the way that he grips the firehouse pole as he slides down. That I feel is far more subtextually important because it is, in effect, a scene of masturbation. It shows that while he is somewhat desirous of experimentation, he is far more repressed and far more wanting to keep the experience to himself rather than to share it. And that, I believe, is a more shall we say, accurate interpretation of the character, which I have included in my upcoming book,
Yes, we
which
definitely look
is,
forward to it.
yes.
Now, moving on to the next character, the Dan Aykroyd character. You had some very fascinating things to say about the Dan Aykroyd character, Ray Stans. You pointed to three specific scenes, and I'm going to name those scenes now, and I want you to tell us the outcome, the conclusion you came to about this character. The first scene is when they're purchasing the firehouse, and the Dan Aykroyd character is very childlike and excited, and he certainly shows enjoyment sliding down the firehouse pole. In fact, he says, "Does this pole still work?" And then says, "This pole is great." To something to that extent, I may be misquoting. And then later on, he does have a wet dream concerning receiving a sexual act from a ghost. And in the third scene, which you highlight, the conclusion near the conclusion of the scene, they are giving a choice to whatever they think of will create form, and it will come and destroy them. Not only them, but the world itself. And in an act of desperation, he thinks back to his childhood, and that spawns the much lovable character that we all know now as the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And he describes his memories about roasting Stay Puft Marshmallow at I believe a summer camp. Yes, I believe the summer camp. And it's saying that form, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, was a form that could never ever destroy him. Now, what can you say about these scenes, and what conclusions can you come to about the Ray Stans / Dan Aykroyd character?
Well, Ray Stans is an unfortunately repressed character. Once again, there is a textual scene which, to the layman's perspective, would appear to be a scene exploring sexuality, in which he is given what is referred to in layman's terms as a blow job by the ghost in question, the female, or at least appearing to be female ghost. And what is truly happening in all three of these scenes that you have mentioned is that Ray Stans is effectively expressing his castration fears. You see, when he asks if the pole still works, what he is expressing is his fear that his phallus is effectively not effective. It is not useful any longer. It is not powerful. It cannot penetrate. It stays limp. It is inert. And as he slides down the pole, he is unfortunately not confirmed. He's not affirmed, I should say, but his fear is confirmed, and thus, in order to overcome his anxiety, he compensates by saying that his pole is great, that he has a great phallus, that is a effective and powerful penis, and is virile, but unfortunately that is that is not what he truly thinks.
And may I just jump
Because
in? And may I just jump in? And may I just jump
yes,
in? And I just
certainly.
this line just came to me. He actually does say to the others, "You've got to try this pole."
Well, yes, you see, and once again, castration and anxiety, he is trying so hard to express his sexuality. He is trying so hard to have anyone in his life who will relieve him of the anxieties that he has experienced sexuality because of his repression that has afflicted him for so long. So this is an invitation which, of course, does not go heeded in that particular scene, as I recall. As far as the scene with the blowjob, quote unquote, the ghost is, of course, not a good partner. This is not something that is a good thing. He is effectively experiencing an encounter with death. He is not be able to give his life force to another living being, but he is having it taken from him by a figure of death. And so this is actually while I've watched the scene many a time, and many of my students and in fact some of my colleagues have laughed at the scene. This is a tragic scene in which his life is literally being drained away by this specter, and it is appalling to me that anyone would laugh at such a scene of horror.
But why does his face show ecstasy if his life is being taken away?
Well, that is a very good point, and the answer to that is that in the period of time when the human body is about to expire entirely, you see there are two kinds of death. There is brain death, and then there is what we call somatic death. And in brain death, the psyche, the personality, everything that comprises an identity has ceased to exist. There is no longer a spark in the brain. But there is a further stage of death in which the body's functions have all entirely ceased, where blood flow has stopped, where nerve action has ended, and where muscle reflexes and various functions do not act as they normally would. And effectively, what is happening in that scene, as what would seem to be ecstasy has overcome his face, is a reflection of the rictus smile. It is an involuntary response where his mouth corners appear to be forming what we would recognize as a smile, but in fact are failing and dying. And finally, the final scene, which you have mentioned, of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man being this fantasy figure that he has been convinced will not harm him. This is effectively a personification of his repression. You see, his textual level of thinking, again, the surface, is telling him that this is a safe figure, that this is someone who is good. But as we know very well, candy is also associated with cavities, with decay, and effectively with death. So what has happened is that in his repression, in this deep repression that he has had since he was a child at summer camp, he has come to associate a figure of death as being a form of comfort. In effect, his desire for death, his death drive, his thanatos, is almost completely conquered his desire for sex, his eros. And in this scene, his own psychological underworkings have betrayed him. And he visibly shows the distress at coming to this realization. But fortunately for him, it is a breakthrough moment, for he is not alone. He is with his various partners, whom he will entwine his own stream with, and overcome this figure of death, of decay, of Candy.
Now, I may remind you that the Venkman character says a line referring to the same Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. He says the line, "If we get this guy laid, we won't have any trouble." Does that... would you interpret that as that sex is a way of defeating death? That sex is a way of making death not a figure of evil?
Oh, certainly. Certainly. That is, in fact, what Freud is all about. That is what my profession, which some of my colleagues have said that my ideas are antiquated, perhaps even delusional. They fail to realize this truth, that in fact sex does conquer death, that not only procreation but also just the very effective life force of sperm, of the ejaculation, of sexuality is life-giving. In fact, if you notice, if I may I if you would just
Yes.
place your hand on top of mine.
Okay.
All right. And do you feel how soft my skin is?
Yeah, it's very soft.
Thank you. You see, this is because of the moisturizing properties of sperm.
Oh, really? I thought it would be a lotion. It smells like cherry.
Oh, yes, that is because I eat a lot of fruit.
Oh, you.
Yes. So you see, I will always start out the day with a bottle of my own spunk and spread that over my skin. I have beautiful skin, as you see. It is soft and healthy. There's life-giving properties in this, and most certainly death-defying and death-defeating properties in sexuality. And most certainly that statement by Venkman is an expression of that idea, and really an encapsulation of that idea. In fact, I feel rock hard once again at understanding the amazing summation of my ideas that is found in the film Ghostbusters.
Well, Dr. Johnson, this has been a thrill, a brilliant evening with you. And I hope that once your new book is finished, you'll definitely come back and come to talk to us more about the discoveries that you have made.
Oh, most certainly. One of the discoveries, of course, will be a title for the new book.
Oh, well, we can't wait. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Johnson, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much, Bill.
And if you join us next week, we'll be talking with Dr. Newenberg as he discusses how the movies Striptease and Showgirls are actually statements about Vietnam. But for Book Talk, I'm Darkside. Or Ted. Or George. Whoever I am. I don't know who I am anymore. Good night.
We'll call you Peter.
Oh, yes. I'm Peter. I may be Peter next week, but I may be Vanessa next. Yes. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Fuck, we are insane. Fucking A. How the hell were you able to improvise all that?
You know, the scary thing is I actually started to believe some of it.
I'm like, yeah. I was like, with Ghostbusters, I'm like, yeah, it actually is. And actually, when Dan Aykroyd's leaving the building, he's smoking a cigarette,
There you go.
basking in the afterglow. But god damn it.